Good evening. The comedian Russell Brand is famous for a lot of things that don't have much to do with his jokes. One of those things is he used to do a lot of hard drugs. The government estimates there are 330,000 problem drug users in this country, nearly half of whom, 149,000, have been prescribed methadone to deal with their addiction. In a documentary to be broadcast on BBC Three next week, Russell Brand says that's plain wrong. We'll speak to him in a minute. First, a taste of his typically understated documentary.
This is a film about drugs, about taking drugs and getting off drugs. Nowadays, I don't drink or take drugs.
I'm a little bit cool, a little bit of a twit, and I sort of think I'm Jesus.
10 years ago, though, I couldn't get enough of them.
It's all about heroin.
Cannabis, booze, acid, speed, coke, crack, smack, that's heroin. I took drugs every single day.
I know that you talk about abstinence. That's absolutely fine, but I think actually keeping some patients, the vast majority of mine who are on methadone, do very, very well.
Methadone's a drug. If you're on methadone, you're on drugs. So for me, it's like just rearranging the furniture on the Titanic.
I would love everybody to live drug-free lives on nothing, but I've been a GP long enough to know that that's not possible.
You're not a drug addict, are you? It doesn't make no difference to me. The money, the fame, the power, the sex, the women, none of it. I'd rather be a drug addict. If I didn't have my programme, I'd be a drug addict today, like that, in a second. I'd walk out, I know how to score around here. Like, I'd do it gladly. And the reason I don't do it is because of the things I'm talking to you about. And I know that with methadone, I'd be using on top.
Well, Russell Brand is here. Russell Brand, welcome.
Thanks, Stephanie.
I've watched most of the documentary, more than that. And I guess the first question is, why did you make it? Why did you think it was important to make? Was it Amy Winehouse's death? Because you do talk about that in
Perhaps that was a catalyst in my decision to make the documentary, but primarily, Stephanie, it was because I wanted more people to be aware of the possibility of abstinence-based recovery, which I believe to be the true solution to the problem and disease of alcoholism and addiction.
Which is going cold turkey, basically, just being...
Not going cold turkey, no, because it's having a programme and a method to deal with a life free from drugs.
Because we saw at the beginning of the programme, I mean, I think the thing that I found most shocking and amazing about the footage in the film is you're watching yourself taking drugs in your late 20s. You look pretty miserable in those pictures, and yet you're sitting in the Savoy Hotel saying, I envy that former self. I kind of wish I was an addict now. A lot of people are going to watch that and just not understand at all.
I think that what must be frustrating for the families of people with drug and alcohol problems is that the allure and potency of the disease is such that it makes people make a lot of irrational and difficult decisions. The things that I did when I was using and drinking were fathomless and boundless and nonsensical, and I think that anyone who knows someone that's suffering from this disease will think, well, why would they do that? Why would they say that? How can they do that?
So why did you do it?
Because I felt like I had no choice at the time, because I think there's a deep sadness and malady within people that they're trying to address with alcohol and drugs.
And what is it exactly that you think people should be doing? What's the government doing wrong?
I think what the government is doing wrong is directing too much funds towards methadone and harm reduction and not giving people the correct information about alcoholism and addiction. I think by focusing on criminalising people that use drugs, I think that you're criminalising an entire class, an entire culture that actually, if it was treated as a health issue, would perhaps be able to progress away from addiction.
So you want to decriminalise?
I think that's kind of a sensational way of saying what I'm saying, but I don't think that criminalisation works. So I don't know, because I don't really feel like I'm qualified to talk about legislative issues, but I know that it doesn't work, and as a recovering drug addict, I know that when I was using, the legal status of the drugs that I used made no difference.
But do you think, I mean, a lot of people would look at your film and look at other things about drug addicts and just say, look, this is a self-inflicted problem. Why should we spend more money trying to help these people? You admit yourself it's very expensive. The kind of treatment that you have is very expensive.
I don't know that it's that expensive comparatively compared to putting people in prison, compared to the social costs, compared to the cost it has on families and our society in general. This problem exists, it's going to continue to exist, and I think if we address it successfully, then we'll see improvement. So I think that's an economic investment that you, as an economics editor, will rightly understand, Stephanie.
Well, but I also understand we don't have very much money at the moment. Why
Yes,
should
of
we
course,
give more money to criminals?
Well, because we've got to spend it, otherwise we'll be spending it on prisons and prisoners and on dealing with it's unavoidable. The expenditure is unavoidable. It's the reallocation of funds is what I'm talking about.
But you don't think necessarily it should be legal?
Not really, because I don't sort of necessarily want to encourage it. I don't think that we should be sending the message to young people that drugs are all right and drugs are cool. I myself don't drink and don't take drugs. I think that people, a certain type of person, should never drink or take drugs. People that have alcoholism or addictive tendencies should really, really avoid it. What I'm saying is that this issue, like none other, shows a disjunct between the government and the people they govern. They don't understand the disease, they don't understand the problem, and they're dealing with it badly.
But your key point is it is a disease. You think it is a disease, a disorder, rather than something that people have just got into, they could have stopped. It's a self-inflicted problem.
Yeah, that's my belief, that's my empirical understanding from 10 years of using drugs and 10 years free from drugs.
Okay, well, we're joined by a few people to talk about this, and but before we widen the debate, we've got Russell Brand, we've got Chip Summers of the drug rehabilitation charity Focus 12, who helped get him clean, the columnist Peter Hitchens, who's written a book, The War We Never Fought, The British Establishment's Surrender to Drugs, and the Conservative MP David Burrows, who helped write Tory Policy on Drugs and Rehabilitation. We're going to get to all of that in a minute, but first we've got one more clip from Russell's documentary.
The Mount Prison in Hemel Hempstead, North London is one place where prisoners get more than methadone. They run an abstinence programme inside.
I didn't become an addict at 17 when I suffered a bereavement. I was an addict from I was 2 years old. My manipulation started when I was 2 years old. My control started when I was 3. You know, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I have to be very honest.
That's not very easy because it's revealing and painful.
Yeah, you know.
Something's a bit embarrassing.
I've sat in this room at times and felt like I was sitting there naked. You know?
You weren't over here, just to clarify. What goes on? It is a cult.
Well, we've got Chip Summers, Peter Hitchens, David Burrows. Peter Hitchens, Russell Brand says this is a disorder. We should treat drug addiction like a disease. Do you agree?
No, it's a crime. It involves the possession of a Class A drug, which is a criminal offence, which people do voluntarily and they do it for pleasure. And if we continue to treat it as if it is a disease for which they should be sympathised with, there will be more and more and more of it, as there has been over the past many years. We do not anymore enforce our own laws on this subject. The very word addiction assumes that the person involved has no free will.
You have no sympathy at all for the people who get trapped on drugs for years on end?
Well, I have sympathy with anybody who gets themselves into trouble, but sympathy isn't the point. What I don't have is any sympathy with somebody who deliberately breaks a known law. They are criminals. They should be punished. And honestly, if they were punished for this, they would, by and large, not get into the trouble they get into, and there would be many, many fewer of them. But we don't do that. You can look at the figures for arrests of people, even for possession of Class A drugs, which we supposedly view most seriously. Of the ones who are convicted, fewer than 1 in 10 are actually sentenced to imprisonment. This is a Class A drug, the most serious.
Russell Brand, they are criminals. What's wrong with what?
I understand what Peter's saying, and I understand his frustration. As a person that has to deal with drug addicts in my life, they're a frustrating type of person to deal with. But I think, Peter, that if you can find in yourself to look at human beings with compassion and love, rather than with aggression, you'll find that there's more of an opportunity for progress. I know it's annoying.
Well, I don't wish to be lectured on aggression by you. You've been extremely aggressive to me in the past when we've met.
That's just because of the bigotry, Peter. I don't mean it. I'm only having a bit of fun because of the Daily Mail stuff and that.
When you actually learn to use reason, you can accuse people of bigotry. Until then, I should keep very quiet about it. Learn to use some reason in this matter.
On Newsnight.
Why is a comedian being given a programme on the BBC to push a policy about drugs?
Because he has first-hand experience of drugs.
Why is our debate on drugs so debased that this is the kind of thing we are reduced to?
Peter, why are you so angry?
I'm angry because many young people in this country are being betrayed.
What do you think we should do?
By a feeble government and a feeblest...
What do you think we should do, Peter?
I think we should enforce our law against illegal drugs.
More people in prison?
I don't want people in prison, no. I want people deterred from taking drugs,
How?
taking drugs which will ruin their lives by punishment.
how, though, mate? 'Cause I want that.
Well,
I don't think
effectively,
people should
well,
take
you
drugs,
ask a question,
Peter.
you've got to listen to the answer. I want,
but you've
I
got to
want
give
them
one, Peter,
deterred by
not just
effective,
banal,
policing.
prescriptive
Listen to what I'm
bigotry.
saying, you'll learn something.
I've heard it before, Peter.
Well, you plainly
It's the
weren't listening that time
rambling-
either.
I don't
want
even
them
think you're ignorant. I just think
deterred
you're innocent.
by effective policing.
You're like a peculiar child.
You see, ad hominem and interruption. Absolutely nothing remotely resembling reason, thought, or fact. And yet you are making a programme on drugs for the BBC,
Mate, do you know
and
what it
I
is?
am not.
You
And
took-
that is
you
what
don't
is exactly
understand.
what is wrong.
Let's
with
bring
this
in one of the
country.
people. Let's bring in one of the people
Yeah, go
who's
on,
in the
bring him
film.
in.
Who's in the